Okay, from last time, this is going to be your little self-check. What we need to do is put these in order. So we've got a zygote divides by mitosis, sperm moves towards an ova, sperm and ova fuse to form a zygote, or fertilization happens. Offspring is fully developed, and then through meiosis, the testes produce sperm and ovaries produce ovum. These are out of order. I want you to put them in chronological order based off of the last video and how this thing actually happens. So if you can do that, let's move on. Let's talk about some advantages and disadvantages of sexual reproduction. So some advantages. This leads to new genetic variations in new generations, which is fundamental for environmental adaptation. Organisms naturally will overproduce. For example, the mule deer populations here in Utah, they will produce, generally they have twins or sometimes even triplets. So they actually will produce more animals than will survive through the winter. Generally, we have about a 65 to 70% winter kill during a normal year, which means 70% of those fawns will not survive through the winter. The ones who have the adaptations for the particular environment are the ones that are going to survive. Now, this makes it so that if we have genetic variation, those that are more adapted to their environment are going to do better than those that are not. Organisms is more protected and does not necessarily have the weaknesses of the parents. Sometimes parents have issues. They have genetic weaknesses. Well, by mixing the genetics from two parents and the genetics not being exactly the same from those parents, it's also going to make it so that the offspring could possibly be much healthier and stronger than the parents. And this can remove bad genes from a population. Same type of thing with the environmental thing. Those bad genes are able to get weeded out. Some disadvantages of sexual reproduction, however. Organism has to find a mate. In order to survive, it does have to find somebody to reproduce with. Pretty soon, your lives are going to be pretty well overrun with that. And that's all right. It does take a longer time to reproduce. Like I said, with some organisms, bacteria, it only takes a couple hours. Other times you have plants that only take a few weeks to reproduce. You got to think, even we're not just talking about how long it takes for them to have a child. We have to talk about what's called the generation interval. From the time an organism is born, how long is it before that organism has its first offspring? For cows, that takes 2 years generally. For people, we're going to talk about 20 years. So this is a long time that it takes for organisms to reproduce. And it can also prevent favorable genes from being passed down from parent to offspring. Now, the other thing that's going to happen is it's going to produce much fewer offspring than asexual reproduction. Now, some organisms do have the ability to do it both ways. For example, we can see that this mushroom here, mushrooms have roots that go down underneath and can spread out and pop up new mushrooms over there. Or underneath these little flaps here, they can produce what are called spores, which are able to spread just like seeds and produce mushrooms elsewhere. Strawberries here, you see this runner going off of there, this little shoot. This can actually grow its own little roots here and become its own strawberry plant. This makes strawberries spread very quickly, and pretty soon they can take over a garden. But also, you have the strawberry itself. What's on the outside of a strawberry? Well, there's seeds. Seeds are created through sexual reproduction. So there's going to be some advantages and disadvantages of all of these. What might some of those be? So we'll finish this up with some mutations in the last video.